Imagine your house is on fire. Everything is on fire. The walls, the ceiling, all of your belongings, everything has been reduced to ash. Except for one item. There's one item that's completely untouched amongst the rubble. And it's a painting. And it is not burned. Not even a little bit. Not even a tiny bit. And then a firefighter says, "Oh no, it's happened again." What do? Is this a ghostly apparition painting? Is this a cursed painting? We're going to get into it. And if you guys are new here, my name is Brandy, and what I do is I do strange, dark history, and I bring it to you guys. I do my makeup at the same time. So if that sounds awesome to you, hit that subscribe button. But today, we're going to be talking about the Crying Boy painting. Okay, and this is supposedly a cursed painting, and we're going to go through everything that happened with this painting. So let's go ahead and get this party started. So the Crying Boy pictures were made by Giovanni Bragolin. Okay, he lived from 1911 to 1981, and he really captured the emotional issues and feelings that went along with, World War II and things like that, because that's when these were made. And he sold a lot of them. They became very, very popular in England, okay? Very, very popular among young couples and such like that. I'm not hating on anybody, but I don't know if I would want a crying child like that, like a painting of that in my home. But it was a different time. Maybe these people, they felt bad for these kids and all this other kind of stuff. But, so you're probably wondering, like, did he just do this for memory? Or is this actually a kid? It is actually a kid, okay? And it's one that he ends up adopting. This is supposedly true. He ends up adopting one of the young boys that he paints, okay? And before he adopts this young boy, he finds out that this boy's family had died in a fire that he started. Okay, the little boy started. So he was an orphan, obviously. So the painter wanted to adopt the orphan. Well, a pastor, preacher, priest, whatever, came up to him and was like, "Look, you don't want any part of that kid. Everywhere he goes, he starts a fire. Everywhere that he goes, there's a fire that follows. You do not want anything to do with this child. You do not want to adopt him." So the child's name is Don Bonillo, okay? And this kid everybody called him Diablo, like the devil. Literally, he did not have a good reputation. He supposedly set a lot of fires. Supposedly, he was the one that set the fire that killed his whole entire family, thus making him an orphan. And he's been warned, the painter's been warned by a priest. "Look, dude, you don't want to adopt this kid. We call him Diablo for a reason, right?" What the crap? So y'all are probably wondering, what does this have to do with the painting? Okay, well, I'm going to tell you. So this painting, okay, started, like I say, it was very, very popular in England. They became very, very popular everywhere, but mostly England. And like I say, it was young couples that were, really enjoying this Crying Boy painting for some reason. I guess they really felt connected to it. And, they really wanted some kind of raw emotion in their house. Well, Ron and Ann Hall's house burned down in September of 1985. Now, let's talk about the 80s real quick and early 90s, because in the 80s, everybody was obsessed with like supernatural stuff. We had shows like the X-Files, Unsolved Mysteries. All that stuff was playing through all this time. And so a lot of people grabbed onto what I'm fixing to tell you. So they lost everything in their home, okay? Everything down to, they had nothing except for the painting of the Crying Boy. Yeah. That painting was untouched by fire. It fell off the wall, fell face down. And it did not burn. Everything in their house burnt up except that painting, okay? Now, the cause of the fire was not, they're not going to say, okay, the painting caused fire. No, they're not going to say that. It was actually like, they used to have like iron pans that were way too deep. And so, you know, if you put it, that has a thing of exploding. Like if it's cracked, especially, and she had a cracked cast iron deep skillet that broke and caused a fire, and that's what burned their house down. But then the fire marshals and everybody comes out and they're like, here's this painting, untouched, not burned, nothing's wrong with it. And this is like the 50th painting that this man has seen. So he's seen it 50 times of people's houses burning down, restaurants burning down, and this painting is the only thing that survives. Even a firefighter named Alan Wilkinson confirmed that there were 50 paintings that he knew of, at least, that were, you know, supposedly burning down the houses. Well, most of these fires were caused by electrical stuff, a cracked iron pan, you know, things like that. And so you can't, they're not saying that the painting actually did it, but it is weird that everything in the house burns except the painting, okay? So just remember that, and remember Alan Wilkinson, because he's going to come in just a minute. So let's go back to when the painter decides to adopt this kid, okay? He takes him back to his studio, his painting studio, where he does all the things and all that fun stuff. He takes him back and he's painting his picture. He's doing his thing. He is doing the crying boy pictures, and people are starting to wonder what kind of methods this man is using in order to get this child to cry like he does. I mean, because it's like legit tears, you know? It's not just like a little, it's like full-blown crying. So a lot of people were kind of looking at this artist sideways, because they were like, how is he getting this boy that he adopted to sit there and cry all the time so that he could paint him? Then the studio goes up in flames. Yeah, it does. It goes up in flames completely, utterly. So many flames. And so then the painter, Amadio, is like, wait a minute. I remember what the priest told me. Diablo, this kid lit my studio on fire. So he kicks Don, the kid, out of his studio and is like, go away, never come back, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to see you anymore. Stay away. And so not anybody really ever heard anything from him again until 1976. Old Don got into a car crash, okay? And he hit a wall and his car exploded into fire. By the time the police got there, there was nothing that they could do, and the driver was beyond recognizable. Now, they pulled out stuff out of his glove compartment and they found out that it was Don, and this kind of solidified the curse of this painting supposedly starting fires inside of people's homes, okay? Now, the painter, when he lost his entire studio and everything, his reputation went down the cracker. Like, nobody wanted to hire him anymore because of the news that was being spread that these paintings are starting fires and they're not burning with the fire, which is totally and utterly crazy. But his rep was ruined. He wasn't commissioned to paint for anybody anymore. He stopped doing the crying boy paintings. But at this time, of course, they had the ability to mass produce, so that you could make pictures, posters, whatever of the crying boy, okay? But he lost everything in the fire. Nobody wanted to hire him after that nobody wanted to commission this man to do any work or anything like that for them, because they were afraid of his paintings, basically. I mean, point blank period. Of course, during this time is the golden age of newspapers. I mean, we've had newspapers by this time for a while, but there's a certain newspaper that runs a story, and it's by the Sun. And it starts to talk about this painting is cursed and it will burn your house down. Okay. Now, this is where everybody got their news back in the day, is from an actual newspaper. Okay. And so all of a sudden, the Sun's getting flooded with calls saying, yeah, this painting killed my whole family. Yeah, this painting burned everything in my house, but it wouldn't burn. This painting, we tried to set it on fire and it wouldn't burn. I mean, they got story after story after story. A girl named Dora said that her house burnt down just 6 months after she bought the painting. Okay. Quote unquote, all of my paintings were destroyed except for the one of the crying boy. Okay. Someone else claimed that her son had caught his private parts on a hook just after she bought the painting. I don't know what happened to his private parts, but I'm just going to say that they got hooked. And boy, that sounds uncomfortable. Another one claimed that her husband and 3 sons had all died when she bought the painting in 1959. That one's kind of freaking me out because that's probably an original 1959. That story is a little plausible, but I kind of want to look at that woman and see if maybe she just didn't kill her whole family. I'm just saying. I mean, who has a husband and 3 sons that die and you're still standing? I'm just saying. Look into her, whoever this person is, that she's going to try to blame it on the painting. Okay, that's fine, that's fine. Now, y'all remember Wilkinson, the firefighter, who said that, the paintings are not starting the fires, but it is a little bit odd that they're not burning, and he didn't understand that part. Okay, and so what's funny is this man's wife, this fireman's, Wilkinson's wife, said that the tears of the boy was putting out the fires. That was her reasoning behind it. She's like, yeah, he's crying so hard that he's literally, putting the fire out with his tears. But we all know that that's not true. It is a painting. But there are some people that believe, and it's just like some tribes out there that won't let you take their picture and things like that, that you'll capture a piece of their soul. And that piece of their soul will stay living in the newspaper. Be living on your canvas or on your painting or whatnot of whatever and whoever you painted. And so they kind of felt like maybe this little boy Don, who had started a fire that killed his family, was starting fires everywhere that he goes. They're thinking that because he captured the soul, a little bit of the soul of this boy, that's what's causing the picture to catch everything on fire. Now, because the Sun had put out a, hey, this is a cursed painting type deal, it really started to, people really started to kind of trip out a little bit. Yeah, they really believed that this painting was causing all these fires because there was a lot of fires, especially in England, kind of like one right after another, where these paintings would not burn. They just would not burn. And so this man named Mick Riley, who was an officer for the Yorkshire Fire Service, he debunked the curse. And this is what he said, quote unquote. The reason why this picture has not always been destroyed because it is painted on high density hardboard, which is difficult to ignite. Okay. Now he thought, okay, this is going to help everybody to chill, No, it did nothing to ease the population's fears of this crying boy painting. So on September 4th, 1985 was when they published their first article, The Sun, and the headline is Blazing Curse of the Crying Boy, okay? Is causing house fires, basically. Now, they kept writing about this kid, or this painting, excuse me. Same thing. And they kept talking about it almost every single day in this newspaper because they were just kind of taking it and like running with it, you know what I mean? And it still wasn't helping. It wasn't easing the population or the public's fear of this painting and what it could possibly do. Not only just talking about the paintings, the newspaper reported on what people were telling them, like I was telling you guys earlier, People were saying, oh yeah, this painting burned down my house and this painting killed my whole family, you know, and all this other kind of stuff. So they started to print that in the newspaper. And what do you think that's going to do to people? It's going to make them think even worse about this painting. They're going to like, okay, now it's not just starting fires, it's killing people. Like, what in the world, you know? And so everybody had a story about this painting, and the Sun was printing it, and people were reading it and they were freaking out. Okay, they did not like it. And so by the time October comes around, people want answers. They're like, what in the world do we do with these paintings? People's houses and restaurants and things like that are burning down, and this painting is not burning along with them. What do we do? So the editor of the Sun decides, well, I've got to do something because I have started this madness and people are really, really, really upset about it. So the editor, Kelvin McKenzie, makes an announcement, and this is what he says, quote unquote, "Enough is enough, folks. If you are worried about a crying boy picture hanging in your home, send it to us immediately. We will destroy it for you, and that should see the back of any curse." That's what he says. So, guess what happens? Everybody starts sending their paintings to the Sun, okay? And no, they didn't hang these paintings up or anything like that. They kind of hid them away. And they got so many. They got 2,500 paintings from people. They had them stacked in like 12-foot high stacks. They never hung one that you could see its face because they didn't want anything terrible to happen to them. But of course, they had a whole spare room full of these paintings. People were sending them from everywhere. And so what were they going to do? They were going to set them all on fire. So the editor, Mackenzie, is trying to figure out a way to do this. So they gather up all the paintings that were sent to them, and they burned all of them right by the Thames River, okay? And they have all the pictures of them doing it and all this fun stuff. Of course, they had like the fire people out there to make sure that nothing went crazy. You know, it was a really controlled fire, you know, and everything went fine. Everything went swimmingly. They burned them all. And then the Sun printed an article right after that called Crying Flame, okay? And claimed that the curse was done. And it said this actually soothed the public finally, with a police officer actually saying, "I think there will be many people who can breathe easier now." So the burning of the paintings helped the public get over their fear of being scared of something that, I'm sorry, but this painting, it didn't set fires. I mean, all the fires, like I say, were either like electrical or because of these big pans they used to use back in the day or something like that, you know? It wasn't by the painting itself. And so anyways, after the fire, there was a British guy, okay, named Steve Punt, who purchased the Crying Boy painting. And he said he was inexplicably delayed on his destination several times. So he bought the painting, and then evidently he was trying to go somewhere and there was either traffic or there was accidents or there was stuff in the road. He couldn't get where he needed to go. So stuff is already starting to happen to old Steve here, okay? And so Punt and his researcher Martin Ship attempted to burn the painting, and they found that there was a fire retardant varnish on the painting so that it couldn't burn. They also tested it while it was falling down when it burned, and that was because of how the string was the only thing on the painting that would burn. So that's why the painting would fall and then fall flat on its face, because the way the string was put on the back of the painting, and that part actually would burn, but the rest of the painting would not, and it would fall face forward and face down. And so, because, like I say, along with the compression board and the fire retardant varnish that they used, it was incredibly hard for them to burn this painting. There is a video of them trying to on YouTube, and you can see that it starts to catch fire, but then it goes out, and they try again, and it starts to catch fire, and then it goes out, and that's just kind of the way it keeps going back and forth, back and forth. They finally ended up burning it, but not before they got a story. He found a woman, okay, named Jane McCutcheon, who had hung the print in her living room in the 1980s. She was cleaning the kitchen when her curtains, drapes, and blinds all caught fire. The family made it out of the home, but the home was destroyed, except for the face of the painting. Quote unquote, she says you could still see the little boy's face on the painting. And then a firefighter on site saw the painting and said, oh no, not another one. Yeah. And so she had all this bad luck. So she finally was like, I'm getting rid of the painting. Like, I'm done with this. I'm super done. I do not care. All these crazy things keep happening. And none of this happened until I bought the painting. So, take that as you will. Soon, the painting became urban legend. Oh yes, people when they heard about this painting, especially in the 2000s, they started making forums about it, group chats, all these things. You won't really find it that much now because it's kind of faded away. You still can get the paintings though through a dealer in Australia, and they're worth about $165. You'd think they'd be worth a lot more than that, considering it's past. But there was a couple of other artists. Of course, as you know, most of us know that when we have a nice piece of art and we do a good job, there's other people out there that want to copy it. So this chick named Anna Zerzinskin painted crying girls and boys and has also been attached to the curse. So this kind of adds more to the element of the soul of the person being captured on the paper. You know what I mean? Because that's people are thinking that this is what's happening or whatnot. Please let this blend in well. I did one dot this time, so it wouldn't be too crazy. Anyways, so the painting was actually on an episode of Weird or What with William Shatner. And if y'all don't watch that show, you really should, because it's awesome, all right? It's super rad. I love it. Anyway, so it was on Weird or What with William Shatner. And so, a lot of people have taken this painting and done experiments with it and all this other kind of stuff. February 2nd of actually 2022, the Hanbury Arms Haunted Hotel and Museum hung several of the crying boy paintings throughout their place. They're on display for people to see. Now, these paintings depicted, guys, utter sadness, despair, loneliness, resentment. These were orphaned kids after World War II. So you can imagine the kind of emotion that they are getting from these children are raw and just incredibly brutal, and you're seeing that all the time. And it's gonna, without you knowing, it's gonna bring up feelings inside of you that you didn't know were there. Something maybe about your own childhood, and so you start feeling a certain type of way towards this painting, or it really grabs you because you resonate with the painting or somewhat like that. I'm just saying, there's a lot of people that said that they don't believe the painting actually set anybody's house on fire. It could, I guess, cause bad luck because, like I say, there are people out there that don't like their picture to be taken because they think it's going to take a piece of their soul. And I can totally understand that, having that belief. And then painting somebody's raw emotion of resentment, sadness, despair, like that, is actually, I do feel like he might have captured a little bit of Don's soul in the painting. Diablo, whatever you want to call him. I'm going to call him Don, okay? He was just a kid. So, can you just imagine these poor kids getting their pictures painted? They have no family. They have nothing. They have nobody, okay? And then you have a painter that comes along and sees an opportunity, and he takes it. But I don't think he realized exactly what he was doing with this kid, especially when you get a full-blown warning from a priest. I'm not that much like, I don't go to church, but I believe in God. And But for a priest to tell me something like that, yeah, I would just go with it, you know. I'd be like, okay, if you're saying that this kid, disaster follows him everywhere he goes, maybe I should listen. But, of course, our artist does not listen, and he ends up getting his studio burnt down in the process, and of course, he automatically blames the boy. There's no proof that the boy even set a fire to his place. There's no proof of that whatsoever. But because of the superstition and because of people wanting to see supernatural things and to believe in the supernatural and to actually experience it for themselves, that's exactly what these people were going for. So, like I say, having this disturbing image of a kid that is so broken and you're making money off that, I'm sorry, but you know, you're just kind of asking for trouble. I mean, especially after World War II. That was nothing but crazy. World War II. There's so many kids that came out of that did not have parents anymore. And it's really sad that they took that fear and vulnerability and put it on a painting and then sold it. But people gotta make money, you know what I mean? And so he played on people's emotions by using a crying kid in a portrait, and then to go on to adopt the child. There were people that were saying that he was abusing Don, the child, to get him to cry, was doing random things so that the boy would cry so that he could paint him and sell the painting. Okay, so they didn't know what was going on behind closed doors with the artist and with the kid. Okay, all we know is he was painting the kid. Okay, and the kid, all of a sudden the place burns down. Maybe he didn't want his picture taken anymore. Maybe he didn't want to sit there and be bullied into crying so that this man can paint his picture. If that's true, if any of that's true, that he actually maybe hurt or abused this boy, then I'm glad the kid got away from him. But the fact that the kid dies in a fiery ball of fury, you know, in a car that hits a wall, he's unrecognizable. They only know from the ID and his or in his glove box. It all circles back around. It all has something to do with fire. And it's absolutely insane. And like I say, you can still get this painting if you want one. There's a dealer in Australia. And like I say, they're like $165. And you can get your own crying child portrait in your house if you want. My question to you guys is, would you hang one of these portraits in your house? And have you ever seen one of these portraits before? Maybe one of your grandparents or your mom or dad or somebody had one and you kind of found it stuck up in the attic. I want to hear y'all's stories because this one's kind of recent, you know what I mean? And I want to know. Tell me you guys stories about the crying boy painting. And if any of y'all have ever experienced any kind of supernatural activity from being around one. I just think that would be super cool to know. So drop that down in the comments. But so that's our story for today, you guys. A little strange history for you. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm sorry it's taken me a minute to put it out, but like I say, I'm working on my kids' time and not mine right now. So I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.